Welcome everyone to Stanford. I screwed up. Yes. Congratulations on finding your way here. Tonight we have an evening filled with music and stories and poems and dance, all celebrating the act of resilience, facing challenges and bouncing back. So welcome. Please welcome to the stage, Yongjin Si.
March 26, 2010. Today's my mom's birthday. I'm walking home from high school in the suffocating heat. My heart is thumping. My friend had just told me that Stanford decisions were coming out today. I get home. I'm sitting in front of the computer, frantically refreshing. It's the longest 30 minutes of my life. Dear Yunjin, On behalf of the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, I'm pleased to welcome you to Stanford's class of 2014. I got in. I did it. All these years of hard work had paid off. I'm going to be spending my next 4 years at my dream institution. I can't think of a better birthday present for my mom. I came to Stanford as a freshman in fall 2010, full of dreams and aspirations. There's a million things on my to-do list. I wanted to study abroad, make new friends, and of course, go to all those crazy parties. Maybe I'll even find the girl of my dreams. It's gonna be a new Yunjin. Well, my dreams came true. I was placed on the craziest floor of the craziest dorm, Arroyo. At our first dorm meeting, before I even realized what was happening, just about 30 guys rushed into the dorm. One guy, he's about 6 feet tall, grasped me by the neck, puts the vodka bottle on my mouth, and shouts, "You drink." It was the end of NSO and the beginning of real life at Stanford. The excitement didn't last very long. Everybody seemed to be having the time of their lives, living it up, getting into all those cool internships over the summer. Yet, as much as I tried to fit in, I felt left out. Everybody was nice enough, but I struggled to connect. It was winter quarter, and I had no friends in the dorm. It's not like academics was any better. I struggled in classes, even in subjects that I used to love. I dreaded going to sections. I didn't want to sound like the stupidest kid in the room. I still wanted to do well, yet motivation was nowhere to be found. I got my first C. I felt fatigued all the time. I struggled to get out of bed. I felt anxious. I couldn't eat. I struggled to get out of bed every morning. I started beating myself up. "Oh, Yunjin, you're so lazy. Yunjin, you're such a failure. Yunjin, you're a disgrace to your family." It's not like I did anything to change my circumstances. After all, I had already messed up, so why bother? I went to bed nauseous every night. I had nightmares about dropping out of Stanford. I got my first F, my first warning letter. Professors noticed that I was missing from classes and reached out to me. Yet I was so anxious that I couldn't even bear and read their emails, and I did the most logical thing. I deleted their emails and I blocked them. Probation, provisional registration. Fall 2014, I failed all but one of my classes. December 18th, 2014. Dear Yunjin, after reviewing your academic records, I write to advise you that you have been placed on a 1-year academic suspension. My hands were trembling. I wanted to throw up. Instead of getting my dream diploma, I was getting kicked out of Stanford. This can't be happening. I tried to wake myself up from this nightmare. I couldn't. Stanford, I didn't screw up. I fucked up. I was scared. I went into full survival mode. I needed food, shelter, and a source of income. With my little savings, I found a room in East Palo Alto. I found a $10 an hour job at the Stanford bookstore. It was kind of depressing. They made me pack boxes all day, every day. To save money on food, I survive on a diet of rice, beans, and baked potatoes with complimentary condiments from the bookstore cafe. To dull those painful, depressive moments, I made in my mind to bike to work every day and swim at the wonderful Stanford pool before I lost my Stanford privileges. Exercise and routine does wonders to the human body. Soon, I felt more energized. I'm able to enjoy the sunshine again. I started volunteering as an interpreter for a pro bono legal clinic in East Palo Alto. To become a better interpreter, I enrolled in a court interpretation program in San Francisco. All these activities reminded me of my passions for language access rights in the community. Then a miracle happened. In February, a former professor reached out to me and asked me to become her course assistant for her class, a practicum in school and community interpreting. That was my dream job. After all, it fit in perfectly with all the work that I've been doing in the community. I wanted to apply so bad, yet I was scared. What if the professor finds out that I wasn't a student anymore? I mustered up the courage and applied to the job anyways. I got the job. The professor trusted that I could do the job well. I didn't see it back then, but the year away from Stanford became the most transformative year of my life. I learned to approach life with action, gratitude, and resilience. I made friends that I would have never met otherwise. I learned to cook delicious dishes and discovered my love for cooking, so I no longer had to survive on bookstore hot sauce with potatoes. I saved enough money to visit my grandpa in China and traveled in Central Asia for 4 months, discovering new cultures and learning how to say thank you in 10 languages. I am forever grateful to all of you who have carried me through my darkest nights. To the friend who held me in her arms as I cried. To the friend who accompanied me to my professor when I explained why I didn't attend a single class for the quarter. To the friend and brother who always encouraged me to pursue my dreams. To the Stanford bookstore, thank you so much for offering me a stable job that allowed me to get back on my feet and to appreciate the values of hard work. This is my story of failure, resilience, growth, and resilience. Thank you. 谢谢大家. Muchísimas gracias. Muito obrigado. Спасибо. Rahmet. Çok teşekkür ederim. Tlaskamatimyak. Thank you. Thank you so much. And before I leave the stage, a final word of gratitude for Stanford University for offering me a full ride to the master's program in Latin American Studies for next year. Thank you.
I didn't get an A in Chem 35. I didn't get a B in Chem 35.
I didn't feel like I belonged at Stanford University as a faculty member for about 9 years, and I've been here for 9 years.
I didn't get my first article published as a law professor at Stanford.
I didn't stay in Physics 61. I didn't finish the second problem set. I just dropped the class.
I didn't pursue my dreams of becoming a math professor because I screwed up and got a C+ in freshman calculus.
I didn't find my passion through my major.
I didn't get my advisor to accept a single paper of mine without making me rewrite it entirely from scratch.
I didn't succeed at saving my sister.
I've never received a fellowship or award in my field.
I didn't study engineering as an undergraduate or a graduate student.
I didn't pass half my classes the first semester of freshman year. This was not a good thing.
I did decide that I was already equipped with everything I needed to be here. I didn't have to be a Stanford professor in the mold that I thought. I had to just be myself.
I did get a C in Chem 35.
I did expand my faculty network. learned a lot more about the submission process, resubmitted much more broadly, and my article was accepted.
I did go to medical school and become a physician, and I'm glad that I did.
I did teach Physics 61 after I became a professor, and I think my experience helps me to be a better teacher.
I did learn how to become the biggest critic of my own work and how to think and write more clearly.
I did figure out that I hadn't passed them not because I couldn't, but because they just weren't things I cared enough about to go after. And I realized it was time for me to go look at some things I cared more about. When I did that, I got happier and a lot more successful.
I did find my passion through electives that connected to my major in ways I never could have predicted.
I did apply for this faculty position at Stanford University, even though I wasn't qualified on paper.
I found validation and self-worth from people I respect who value my work.
I did learn to enjoy the people in my life, to love them, and to be grateful for the time that I do have with them.
Our next performer is Sarah Ribeiro Broomhead.
Hey, Mama, won't you come down? Hey, Mama, won't you come down to the river to wade, to bathe? Hey, Mama, won't you come down? Hey, Mama, won't you come down to the river to wade, to bathe? Ooh, wash my hair like you wash my hair for years and years. I'm going away. Ooh, wash my hair like you wash my hair for years and years. I'm going away. There's a man I know, I think he loves me so. Finally, I'm going away. So, Mama, won't you come down? Hey, Mama, won't you come down to the river to wade, to bathe?
Thank you, Sarah. Our next storyteller is Kevin Ristagi.
I was a senior at MIT, and I decided to start a company with a good friend of mine. His name is Gihan. Gihan was one of the best designers I knew. But more than that, he's somebody that I really respected. He and I had become friends junior year. It's a good thing, too, because the startup that we ended up working on, well, we were the only two people full-time. He and I spent thousands, what added up to thousands of hours together. I spent more time with Gihan than I'd spent with anybody outside of my nuclear family. I spent more time with Gihan than I'd spent with my best friend. We were pretty broke, so we rented a room in a shut-down fraternity. And the room had a walk-in closet. We put a bunk bed in the walk-in closet. We slept in the closet for 6 months. I joined the startup in part because I wanted to do something independent. I wanted to do something cool. And Gihan and I talked about that. We talked about our pasts. We talked about our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations. We talked about what we wanted for the future, not just for the business, but also for ourselves. Every once in a while, we'd have a disagreement or two, as happens in a lot of partnerships. Generally, I would say something really stupid or arrogant. Gihan would react, saying, hey, man, maybe you shouldn't say something like that. I'd be like, don't tell me what to do. And we kind of just move on, sweep it under the rug. We were friends. We were business partners. And that was fine for a while because the business itself wasn't really a big deal. We didn't really sell anything. We made a few things. The next year, things got more serious. They got more real. We launched on Kickstarter, and instead of selling hundreds of our product, we were selling thousands. We were selling hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, holy crap, this is crazy. This internet thing is just ridiculous. We brought on new partners, interns, but all of this success didn't make these disagreements, these little wrinkles, any better. It actually, ironically, made them worse. There was a moment, I remember, when I lost the trust of the new partners. We'd made a deal where they could go back to school. They were working with us for the summer. And we'd been working on this so long, I was getting a little desperate, a little freaked out. I told them, you know what? You guys need to come on full time if we're doing this. And I remember feeling in that moment that I had threatened them. And looking back, I think that that's when I lost the team's trust. We all know where this is going. A couple months later, Gihan, my business partner, sided with them. They voted me out. And suddenly, I was fired from a company I helped start. It was super deeply ironic. I remember sitting down with him. I knew what was coming. I looked at him and I said, if you're going to fire me, just fire me. He responds, that's not what's happening. Nobody's getting fired. But it's exactly what happened. I was so upset. The fact that I saw it coming did not help. If anything, it made it worse. I remember that night, I had to go back to the office to get my stuff. And I was so angry. I felt like something I'd helped build had just been taken from me. If I'm being really honest, I was deeply hurt. How could this have happened? Gihan was my friend. Usually when you get fired, that's kind of it, right? They give you a deal, you take it, you go on your merry way, especially if you're working for a big organization. But with a tiny startup, no. We needed to negotiate. We needed lawyers. I do not like working with lawyers. No offense. I was paying this lawyer with money I didn't have. My parents had been helping support me financially. And suddenly it was like, well, I don't know, you're not doing the startup anymore, so maybe. And suddenly I'm going very, very broke very quickly, negotiating with somebody who was like my brother. It did eventually wrap up. I got advice from a mentor who told me that he had known us both. And he said, Kevin, think about the long term. Don't be short-sighted. I was still really pissed off at Gihan because deep down I knew that it was his vote. I knew that he had fired me. This mentor said, think about the long term. You guys have so much more to learn from each other beyond this company, beyond all this stuff. I moved away from Boston because I couldn't handle it anymore. Everything that was friendly didn't feel as friendly anymore. I wrote Gihan a letter before I moved, telling him kind of my side of the story. I told him all these things I wish I could have said in the negotiation, and a lot of them were regrets, mistakes that I had made too. I also told him the mistakes that he had made, just, for good measure. At the end of the letter, I closed it saying, "You're still invited to my wedding, asshole." I actually did write that. Because I did want to stay friends. And this is weird, right? This is super awkward. Post-breakup, hey, I really want to be friends. Great. Doesn't always work out. But it did. I reached out. Gihan reached out. We kept talking. We sat down with a mutual friend, and he told us, he said, there's been blood between you two. And he was right. I remember those conversations with Gihan as being awkward because he was on solid ground and I was not. I had moved to Austin. I started a small business. It immediately failed. But he was still willing to take the meeting, to have the conversations. I really respect that. Looking forward, I think it's important that you know that after I left the startup, any mention of it got me really upset. I would have trouble sleeping. We made clothes. That's what our company did. And I put all the clothes in a box in the attic after talking to a professor on the phone. He told me, he said, Kevin, you have to be done with this. You need to put this aside. But Gihan and I kept talking. I'm proud to say that when I was in San Francisco recently, when I walked past our store, one of the stores that our startup has, something strange happened. Something very weird for me, because earlier, remember, I would have totally been freaked out. I looked up and I saw the store, and then I kind of zoomed out. I saw all these other stores, all these other experiences. I looked a little bit closer, and I saw the redesign that Gihan had done, and it looked great. It was really cool. There's this awesome photo of the Earth from the moon, and I love space, he loves space, it's great. So I texted him, great redesign, awesome job. I lost something. I felt like I had lost part of myself. But what's so magical to me is that I didn't lose what we had. I'm in grad school here now, and a lot of times people will say, what did you do before, especially at the business school? And sometimes they'll ask, what are you most proud of? And oftentimes, someone kind of is looking for a little bit of work history. Oh, I did this at my job, I did that. And I'm proud of the work that we did together, and I'm proud of what's been done since. But what I'm most proud of is the fact that not only are Gihan and I still friends, I think we're better friends. I think looking back, I was so upset about it, but seeing that store, I realized that, it was fine, that I was fine. Thank you.
And now, Please welcome to the stage Everyday People.
The storm, 'cause I need somebody who will stand by me through the good times and bad times. She will always be right there. Sunny day, everybody loves them. Tell me, can you stand the rain? Storms will come. This we know for sure. Can you stand the rain? Do whatever needs to be done.
The summer of my life, I spent leading 3- and 4-year-olds on adventures in the Sierra Nevadas. I loved it. But what I really loved were my co-counselors. I was a shy college kid in awe at the enthusiasm and outgoing spirit and energy and creativity and talent of the other counselors that I got to work with. I sat in the audience every Friday night and watched them put on a talent show that consistently blew me away. My favorite act every week was Andrew. He was a tall, charismatic, athletic varsity soccer player who'd walk out on stage, bow-legged, faded jeans, t-shirt. He'd look out at the audience and he'd quietly say, "You might get the urge to clap along. Don't." And then he'd start tapping his foot. And invariably, there'd be kids sitting in the front that would start clapping along. And he'd just look at them and shake them off. And soon he'd start adding his hands to the rhythm. And then he would slap himself in various parts of his body in a perfect syncopated beat. The energy would build and the rhythm would get faster and faster in almost impossible speeds until finally he threw his hands in the air and the crowd spontaneously would give him a standing ovation every single week. I told him once, I said, "I wish I could do that." He said, "You could?" I said, "No, I really can't. I don't have any rhythm." He said, "That's not what it takes. Look, I'll show you." And he showed me the different moves, how you slap which parts of your body. And I tried it, and I was like, "Yeah, I can't do that." He said, "You can," and that's it. That was the end of the discussion. The next year I came back to the camp, and I discovered something interesting about the talent show. It wasn't planned ahead of time, and in fact, on the first week, I discovered there were no acts ready because the host came up to me and said, "Dan, do you have an act for the talent show?" And I said, "Oh, no, I don't." He said, "Well, we don't have anything, so you have to go up there." I said, no, I really can't go. I knew not to take big risks. I would just feel like a fool. He said, "Can't you do something?" I said, "What, like the ham bone?" He said, "Okay, you're up first." I regretted it instantly, even mentioning the ham bone. I thought, oh no, I am really screwed. But I had taken a class at Stanford earlier that year in improvisation, and the teacher said, "Pretend you're an expert." I walked out on stage, terrified, tried not to show it. I said, "You might get the urge to clap along, but don't." And I could tell that some people in the audience thought I was Andrew. They thought I was him. They didn't remember what he looked like. And I started tapping my foot, and the kids started clapping, and I went, And then I started slapping my leg, thinking, how's this gonna turn out? And then I started adding the other hits, and I just went for it. I started hitting myself as hard as I possibly could, just slapping and smacking, and it worked. In that the audience was laughing with me, in a sense. They were enjoying the act. They understood that I couldn't do it. But they were celebrating the fact that I was up there giving it my all. I was pretty pleased with myself, and I was asked to do it again the next week and the next. I got really into it. I started making up stories. I said, I learned this from my dad. Used to play minor league ball in Tennessee. I don't know where I got that. But something happened somewhere along the way. I think it was around week 8. I realized that I wasn't pretending to do the ham bone anymore. Somehow, pretend you're an expert changed into something else. So, you might get the urge to clap along, but don't. Thank you. I'm very pleased to welcome our next performer up onto the stage, Chastity Salvador.
So this is a story about how I view my failure and my screwed upness here at Stanford. It's not a particular instance or an event, like curling my hair when I knew that it was going to rain tonight, and like the 2 bike crashes I've been in, and like the first failing grade I've got ever, all of which I've done. But it's more so just how I felt over the 4 years at Stanford. And I hope you enjoy. It's called Stanford, My Salvation. April 29th, 2013. The screen reads, "Thank you for your confirmation for your intent to enroll." As I sat there with tears in my eyes, I almost said, "No, thank you." But I'm glad I didn't. Because see, at the time, I thought that Stanford would be my salvation. One of which I'd learn how to diagnose the many nights I stayed up in the car crying until 4 a.m. in the morning. As I'd watch words of fire being thrown from every angle of my house. My family. They argued about money and about food and about my little brother who would take him from home to practice and to school, and then who would do it all over again the next day. As I watched from the car window because I couldn't push myself out the door to join the conversation. This is what it's felt like all 4 years at Stanford. As I lay every night to rest, never knowing what a cold night rest feels like, none of us do at this university. This is what Stanford has felt like all 4 years, as I lavished in my $300,000 degree and have 3 jobs that pay more an hour than my family could ever imagine. This guilt, it spun me in circles like a roller coaster. The acceleration began when I realized that my family still struggled to pay the gas bill, the light bill, for gas, and sometimes even for food. So I settled in the pendulum of comfort foods, like hot Cheetos and pickles and frozen pizza, and then I am hoisted back into the air when I realize that I can eat so healthily here. I can eat things like kale? Oh, kale, you mean kale. Yes, right, kale. Yes, I did mispronounce kale for the first time. I was hoisted back into the air when I realized that I could eat so healthily here without a worry. So healthily that it started to feel like my comfort foods became cultural appropriation. This place spun me. It spun me so rapidly that I started to feel like my skin was being stretched into textures and colors that I couldn't identify anymore, like my skin couldn't breathe anymore. I screwed up, and I was wrong. I was wrong in thinking that this place could save me, that a Western education could save me and my family, and my community. I was wrong. I was asked to talk about how I failed in my academics tonight, but I've never been asked about how my academics have failed me. So here I am to say that every chance I got to go home and every chance I do get to go home, I do because the minute that I arrive, I learn about the many intricate ways that we have learned how to survive and thrive as a community of 5,000 people. Ways like collecting clay from the mountains and then molding it into a pottery and then firing it just enough to make a canteen to hoist water from the bottom of the mesa to the top of the mesa for a whole community to drink. Ways like how my little brother and our little brothers pray for their big sisters and their little sisters and 7 generations to come after them. so ritually and so vigorously that they could probably incorporate each of their prayers in their basketball and cross-country practices. Ways like how my community is building schools for kindergarteners all the way up to seniors in high school that value language and culture just as much as they value assessments in reading and in math. I screwed up, and I was wrong. I screwed up in that it took me a whole 4 years to realize that when my community and when my family told me to go, get an education so that you can come back and share what you learned with our community and with our people. What they really were saying and what they really meant was go. Get an education, get a Stanford degree so that you can come back and protect what has been here long before America, so that you can go and protect our ways of living the way they have been for thousands and thousands of years. So as I stand here, almost a college graduate, almost a Stanford graduate, I can't help but feel thankful. Thankful to have met the many and countless Indigenous scholars and advocates who have taught me how to stand tall and comfortable in my brown skin. And thankful to be able to say that I am Hakome Hanoch. I am from the Acoma people. People who created worlds of love and resistance and nourishment in ways stronger than I could ever learn at any institution.
And next up, please welcome to the stage the Stanford Gospel Choir.
I just want to be happy, but if I keep on doing the things that keep on bringing me pain, there's no one else I can blame if I'm not happy. Wasted time, but now I can see the biggest enemy, it was me, so I'm not happy. Cry yourself to sleep, shout and raise your hands. It won't change a thing, child, until you understand. If you're tired of being the same, if you're tired of things not changing, it's time for you to get out the way. Don't get stuck in how you feel. Say, Jesus, take the wheel. He knows the road that you need to take. If you want to be happy, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. But if I keep on giving my heart for people to tear apart, the healing will never start, so I can be happy. Will I ever be happy? Cry yourself to sleep, shout and raise your hands. It won't change a thing, child, until you understand. If you're tired of being the same, if you're tired of things not changing, it's time for you to get out the way. Don't get stuck in how you feel. Say, Jesus, take the wheel. He knows the road that you need to take. It's so easy to complain, addicted to the pain. You give your heart, they push it away. Jesus knows just how you feel. Just let him take the wheel. The love you need, he already gave. If you want to be happy, I just want to be happy. Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah, yeah.
If you're tired of being the same, if you're tired of things not changing, it's time for you to get out the way.
Don't get stuck in how you feel. Say, Jesus, take the wheel. He knows the road that you need to take. It's so easy to complain, addicted to the pain. You give your heart, they push it away. Jesus knows just how you feel. Just let him take the wheel. The love you need, he already gave. Do you want to be happy? I just want to be happy. Do you want to be happy? I just want to be happy.
Our next storyteller is Yafen Wong.
In the first year of my master's degree in philosophy at Tufts University, I took a seminar with a professor that I greatly admired. For the final paper topic of that class, the professor suggested for me an idea he was very excited about. It was a very idiosyncratic interpretation of a famous philosopher. The professor asked if I would like to work out the details of that idea for him. I said yes. I really want to work with that professor. I soon realized that I didn't like the professor's idea at all. The more I worked on that idea, the less it made sense to me. By the end of that spring semester, the paper turned into an incomplete. For the first couple weeks of the summer break, I locked myself up in my room. I didn't talk to anyone at all. I tried very hard to make progress on that paper. I got stuck every time. I was frustrated, confused. I never had problems writing philosophy before. I had no idea what went wrong. Finally, a solution came to me. I could escape from all these troubles by playing video games. I knew I had problems with video games before. Back in middle school, I played video games so hard that my parents had to physically destroy all the gaming CDs in order to stop me from playing. But the idea of getting stuck at this paper again and again was so oppressive that playing video games felt like a great solution at the time. I started playing immediately. It was so much fun to command huge Roman armies in the siege of Carthage, or to travel across the snowy mountains of Skyrim to hunt down a dragon. In the game world, I was free, safe, powerful. I felt I had none of those things in real life. My video game behaviors quickly escalated. Often I played 10 hours, 12, even more hours per day, often skipping meals, sleep, even bathroom breaks. Time flew by. On August 6th, I sat on my bed talking to my parents on the phone. It was my birthday. My parents were excited. I was lethargic. Finally, my dad asked what was wrong. I told him, I've been working on this paper really hard. I'm tired. I hate myself as I lied. I knew that I haven't been working in that paper for over 3 months. In the meantime, I played for over 1,000 hours of video games. At that moment, I really wanted to stop. But the idea of going back to that paper, getting stuck, was terrifying. I chose to go back playing games. It was the easier choice. About 2 weeks before the fall semester began, I woke up one morning completely stressed out. The idea of going back to school faced my professor, telling him that I had done nothing at all on the paper during the summer, finally sank in. That day, I locked away my gaming device. I brought my books down into my basement. I started working on my paper there. It was a terrible day. I was tired, sleep deprived. I constantly fantasized about playing games. I regret about wasting so much time already. I didn't get that much work done on that day. I did manage to refrain from playing. The paper took 3 more months of hard work to finish. Initially, it was just as difficult. I had to research on video game addictions just to cope with my cravings. Slowly, the paper grew on me. I felt more comfortable, more confident in working on it. By the time I was done with it, it was the most interesting paper I had ever written. A year later, I used it as my writing sample for my PhD applications. It helped me to get into the Stanford philosophy department. To this day, I still experience video game cravings, especially when I face challenging creative projects. When that happened, I will remind myself of what happened before, how a paper that I tried so desperately to escape from ended up creating one of the best opportunities of my life.
Thank you, Yifan Wang. Is there anybody out here who wrote one of those 6-word stories that are outside on the boards? This was a few months ago. There was a contest with 6-word stories. Are there any authors of the 6-word stories? I have a raffle that if you wrote one, you might win in the raffle. If there's not going to be a winner, then I'll just read a few of these because I think they're just delightful. Is Kat Sanchez here? Kat Sanchez, you'll win a real prize. Oh, it's you, Kat. Kat, would you like to read yours or would you like me to read it? Oh, well, you can read it. It's right here. Awesome.
Oh, my God. All right.
Right up close to the mic.
Okay. How's this? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Never finished high school. Now, Stanford.
Yeah. Before we move on, we're almost done with the program. I want to say a couple of thank yous. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Adina Glickman, who's produced this. Adina is amazing. And her team, along with Michelle Darby and Alana Garcia, and our amazing crew with Connolly and Carrie and Sherwin and Megan, everyone, all the volunteers, give everyone a big hand. And a huge thank you to the Coffee House for stepping up in the middle without any warning and saying, hey, can we crash your pad and do this show here? Thank you to the Coffee House. And please, buy food. Do buy food to show your thanks. Last year we had a poem from Skylar Cohen, and this year we're going to welcome him back to the stage again. Skylar, come on up.
One year ago, onto this stage I paced. I talked to you all about troubles I faced. Telling my story and hearing it hurt made me feel stronger with each spoken word. But in the months after, it was not complete. Should I rewrite it or admit defeat? The answer was neither, and here I've begun to show that resilience is never done. My story last year made it seem like the end. All my problems were fixed. There was nothing to mend. But things have been no easier during this time. Much has been stressful, though some has been sublime. But a question is raised by this rise and this fall. If I feel down and out, did I bounce back at all? But resilience isn't the moment you win. It's all of the moments that you don't give in. Resilience isn't when you reach the skies. It's the breeze that sustains you, compels you to rise. We speak to you here. We speak to you here to deal with our own stress. It's not like we're perfect and you are a mess. We don't stand here as idols. We stand here as peers. Each of us has faced and will face more fears, but we'll face them together. Onwards we'll go. We each have our sorrows, but I want you to know that we'll be alongside you each step of the way. Resolve is a feeling, not something you say. A feeling, I hope, with which we can all leave. That little by little, we all can achieve the slimmest of gains, the slightest of hopes, the different perspective that helps you to cope. So good night and good luck. And one last wish I'll tell, that as we keep going, you do so as well. Thank you.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend.